I bring you greetings on another moment and another time to discuss Indigenous African Sign Languages on Indigenous Hands and Indigenous Voices, brought to you by Save the Deaf and Endangered Languages Initiative. And so we are going to be taking another discussion that featured in our just concluded conference on Indigenous Hands and Indigenous Voices of African Identity. And so today we will be looking at one of the keynotes by Dr. Victoria Nyst and Nyako. And today our topic is Nothing About Us Without Us, the challenges of research in African Sign Languages. Nothing about us without us, the challenges in research on African Sign Languages. I will start by introducing Dr. Victoria Nyst, who is an associate professor working at Leiden University Center for Linguistics in the Netherlands. She has heard a lot of work that focus on gesture of the deaf and hearing people. She's also working on the documentation and description of the sign languages in Africa in different African deaf communities and other places. She has had a lot of works and she has done a lot of work with deaf Africans, both deaf and hearing, of course. She's done work in Ghana, Kenya, and Mali. She did this presentation with Mr. Nyako, a deaf scholar from Ghana, and they have been working together for a while. So from their presentation, which is tagged Nothing About Us Without Us, the challenges in research on African Sign Languages, we are going to be looking at some of the take-homes in that presentation. And I know that you know that the slogan Nothing About Us Without Us is a popular slogan amongst deaf people, by extension amongst people with disabilities. At least for all I know, it rings bell amongst deaf in Nigeria. And there is a whole lot of interpretation also given to it. So we are going to be looking at how they brought this slogan into play to look at the challenges of doing research in African deaf communities. And I will really say that their presentations spoke a lot to me and to the work we've been doing in SDLE, because we are researchers working in deaf communities, and we really learned a lot. I did learn a lot from their presentation. And we are going to be looking at some questions. The first question we will consider from their presentation today is the question of why do we need to document sign languages in Africa? Why do we need to document sign languages in Africa? And this is an important question, and this is a question that, you know, anybody can try to answer from different angles. So from their presentation, Victoria and Nyarko, they looked at sign languages that we have in Africa, and they observed that Africa has very rich sign language systems, but the challenge is how to harness and preserve these sign languages. So we need to document sign languages in Africa because Africa has rich sign language system. And not just that Africa has rich sign language systems, these sign language systems, many of which are very endangered. Many of them are endangered. Many of them are at the risk of going extinct. Right now, there's a lot of sign languages that the signers themselves don't even regard as sign languages. Of course, they address this issue in their presentation also. We need to document indigenous sign languages in Africa because they are important linguistic and cultural heritages of the deaf people in Africa. And culture and language are two things that are one. In fact, described in so many ways, language is an embodiment of culture, and culture also is expressed through our languages. So you find out that a people that have culture per se, or a cultural community should have a language through which they express themselves, and that language should not be different from their culture. We have universal cultures, we have specific cultures that are used to identify a people. They also observed in their presentation that African deaf communities are rich in natural signs, many of which are being discriminated against by the signers themselves and regarded as local. So this speaks to the language attitude, which is one of the core issues that they treated in this presentation, the language attitude of both deaf and hearing signers. And if you go through our series, all the episodes in this series, you will observe that the issue of language attitude, we've discussed it a lot with regard to indigenous sign languages. The language attitude issue was also addressed in the last episode when we looked at the last presentation, I think in the last 2 weeks. So it is important that a people who own a language should regard that language as theirs, and it is also something that helps the language to grow. On the other hand, if a people do not regard their language as important to them in the expression of their culture, their mindset and everything, and people from outside will not do that. The much people from outside, foreigners, could do by experience is to bring in their own language. So if you do not regard your language, it doesn't matter how local it could be, it means that it will die off. So we have met and we have documented a lot of signs that are at best regarded as natural or local, and when we started doing this work, it was as if like, oh, we didn't even know that these are signs. So but we're glad that there is some level of awareness amongst deaf people that we'll be working with right now to understand that those that were generally regarded as local are part of their linguistic heritage. And so Dr. Nyst and Nyako addressed this issue very powerfully in their presentation. The issue of regarding every signing system in African deaf community as important as any other signing system, foreign or foreign based. They described the sign language system or sign language landscape of African deaf communities as that has different layers: the natural, the local, the home, the village signs, and with the school sign language, which is a creolized, according to some people, or an adapted form of the foreign sign language, which of course was introduced into Africa since after the independence of the various countries. The second question they addressed in that we are picking away from their presentation as the presentation address is the question of why do researchers need to work with deaf signers to document their sign languages? If you are a fieldwork linguist, you know that this is a pragmatic question, and one that also requires a pragmatic approach. Number one is that every community, deaf or hearing, every linguistic community that permits whether foreign or local linguists to come and work in their community to document their language, they have the right to be part of that documentation process. And I was glad to learn how they touched this matter and treated it, and to also know that in our documentation projects, we have been doing great, judging by how they, what they discussed in this presentation. So basically, researchers who go into the communities to document communities' languages, they need the communities to be part and parcel of that process. But there's something that usually stands on the way, which is the issue of training. The linguists who come to document languages are trained to do that. The community members who own the language are not trained in that area, and according to their presentation, it is required for the researchers to be involved with the community and also get the community representatives trained in the art and craft of language documentation, so that they will not only be aware of what is going on at that moment, but rather be able to, if possible, take on the documentation themselves going forward. So it is important for the researchers to carry along the community members so that they will understand their language, how it works. So we know from linguistics' point of view that a speaker's knowledge, native knowledge, indigenous knowledge, does not include knowing how the language works by analyzing it or by being able to analyze it. But knowing the language, using it for daily communication and all other things that language serves a people is part of a native speaker's knowledge. So linguists are those trained, not necessarily coming from that community. Linguists who are trained to document languages do not need to be speakers of that language, and in fact, in most cases are not. But they have the training to analyze such languages. Sign language is not exceptional. The modality might be a different ballgame altogether, but if a researcher is well trained in the work they are doing, they understand what they want to do. And so the piece of bringing the community members into play is very, very important. And so in that case, the community members should as well be very open to be part of the system in a way that is helpful to the work that is to be done and to ensure that the work has a success. So many people that have succeeded in documenting communities' languages will not tell you they didn't have challenges in relationships. There's always the issue of trust in a hearing community, hearing people documenting spoken languages. The issue of trust comes in. How much more in a deaf community, whereby the deaf signers have to trust the hearing researchers, and in turn, the hearing researchers have to also trust the deaf signers. So the one big issue they seem to want to bring into limelight is this issue of bringing the community to play along. And so I must say, from the perspective of a researcher, and not speaking on behalf of the deaf community, that this is huge. And from experience, it has also been huge in that it takes a lot of patience, a lot of understanding, and a lot of forbearing to make sure that you get to carry the community along. And the community needs to understand that it takes so from them. It takes them to understand that this person coming to do this didn't just decide, let me go and use these people's language and make money. Let me go and usurp these people by wanting to document their language. No. One, fieldwork linguists who work on people's languages, first of all, develop the passion. You have to have the passion. You have to have the what it takes to say that, oh, I can give myself to work to ensure that this language does not go extinct. That is number one. So it is, both ways, and both parties need to understand that. Finally, in their presentation, they talked about giving back. And this, of course, spoke to us very much well. And I'm so glad that the deaf signers that have been working with us, we have been working with them in a way that is suggesting that we are doing our best to give back to the community. For instance, our work is based on non-profit organization, and we are doing different projects to give back to the community. We are finding or identifying some individuals whose education require some assistance, and we are doing that. Some of the deaf individuals that are also working with us are currently being trained. Those are some of the things that they pointed out that that happens in a setting like that. But very much more importantly, again, is the fact that the community needs to be open and ensure that things work in a way that it should represent the community and the community representing themselves. We have an experience of working in a community, and by the time the community found out that we came and we were going to be giving money to those that worked with us, everybody wanted to be involved. So, and we wanted to make sure that we selected people that work with us once a day. But by the time they found out there was money, people want to repeat the next day. Somebody wanted to work with us all through the week so that they will be the ones to take the money. That is not right. And in that situation, we found ourselves in a situation not to so much intervene, be in the selection process, because we didn't know these people. We came on trust. We needed to allow their leaders to select those who will work with us. Yet we needed to ensure that the leader would be fair enough to give us people that work with us through the week, not repeating people. So it is a little bit delicate. And it is because of the delicacy of this issue that it formed a keynote address in our conference. And I cannot, and I didn't intend to exhaust the discussion that Nyst and Nyako had in their presentation, because the presentation is on our YouTube channel if you want to watch the entire discussion. So today, I believe you may have taken away some of these salient points that they raised in their presentation. The issue of not letting down or looking down on our sign language systems, especially the indigenous ones, which are the ones we are much more concerned about here. The sign languages of the people have to be representative of those people. That's what we've been saying. And again, the issue of giving back, the issue of trust, the issue of ensuring that you carry along the community. And so we are so much excited knowing that these issues can be justifiably discussed the way it was discussed in that presentation. So I bet you go to our YouTube channel and find the presentation by Victoria Nyst and Nyako. You are gonna be happy you did. So today, once again, this is the Indigenous Hands, the Indigenous Voices, brought to you by Save the Deaf and Endangered Languages Initiative. I hope to see you here again in the next week. Until then, keep liking our videos. Keep sharing our videos. See you next week. Bye.